In today's political panel, with me today, Maura Gillespie, the founder and principal of Bluestack Strategies, and Brad Howard, a Democratic strategist. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So we are seeing that the progressive left is in full-on freak-out mode. Here's more from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
They are expanding their role into acting as though they are Congress itself. And that, I believe, is an expansion of power that we really must be focusing on. The danger of this court and the abuse of power in this court, particularly as it is related to the entanglements around conflicts of interest as well.
Is emphasizing the Supreme Court, Maura, one thing Republicans have done right over the years?
We've seen a short turnover, or a great turnover, in a short amount of time. 4 new justices in 5 years. And I believe, as President Obama had said, elections have consequences. And the Republican Party was able to take advantage of an opportunity to elect those 3 new justices in a short time period. So, yes, it will have an impact on elections, and it should moving forward. I think to what the former Congresswoman was saying, just because you disagree with a decision doesn't necessarily make it wrong.
From the Fox News poll, in terms of confidence in the Supreme Court, 48% have it, 52% lack it. That's down significantly from 2017 and 2019. Here's former Vice President Mike Pence today on the affirmative action rulings.
The decision by the Supreme Court today was an acknowledgement of the incredible progress that minority Americans have made, their extraordinary educational achievements, and I have every confidence that African Americans and other minority Americans are going to continue to compete and succeed in universities around the country.
Brad, in terms of public confidence in the high court, would tightened up ethics rules help?
Absolutely. I think a lot of Americans were alarmed to learn that the Supreme Court is in charge of the ethics around itself and investigating. There's no congressional oversight there. And I think Democrats are smart to pursue ethics reform for the Supreme Court, because I do think that will add confidence to its legitimacy and its operations. But let's be clear, that polling showed that confidence has dropped in the Supreme Court, and it all started around when Mitch McConnell blocked President Obama's appointment of Merrick Garland to the court and held it open for almost 2 years. That's an extraordinary step that was way out of line with constitutional norms. And so that kind of started this effort. And this court for the first time in decades has started rolling back rights that Americans had. We haven't had a court do that in a very long time. If you look at the Democratic base, LGBTQ voters, African Americans, young people, my hope is that this is a galvanizing force for Democrats around the country. This court is no accident. This court, Republicans and conservatives have been building toward for decades, between outside groups funneling money into elections, between electing presidents that they have made the Supreme Court a top priority. We've got to do that as Democrats. Now is our time to respond, and I'm hopeful this will galvanize our base heading into the 24 election.
Okay, in this political season, Hunter Biden has to be weighing on some of the president's political advisors. From the Fox poll, DOJ treatment of Hunter Biden, not tough enough, 55%, too tough, 7%, fair, 34%. Maura, how big of a political liability is the first son?
It's absolutely a political liability for the president. But I also think that for voters to look at this drama that is surrounding the first family and think, okay, is this what we want for another 4 years? And I would say the answer is going to be no, because the attention is focused on his scandals, his getting to use his dad's name and the nepotism at play here, and not on the issues that are impacting everyday Americans, like inflation and rising costs across the board of different things. And that's going to be a concern for people as they get to the ballot box.
Brad, your thoughts?
Well, number one, I think it's ironic for any Republican to really accuse someone of benefiting from nepotism when you look at the Trump children. But secondly, this isn't the Biden world focusing on this issue. It is House Republicans that have made this their top priority in the House. And there's no plan from the Republicans to address inflation. There's no plan to address higher education or student loan rates. It's Hunter Biden all the time, investigations galore. And so I think voters have to ask, to the previous speaker's point, is this what you really want Congress focusing on for the next 4 years? It's not. And so I think Republicans are taking a huge risk here. They cannot they can't find any dirt on the president, so they're trying to attack his son. And I think that's going to backfire for a lot of voters.
All right, well, we will follow.
I'd love to weigh in there.
Go ahead, Maura.
So I've said countless times to pretty much everyone, if you're frustrated by the nepotism that's in the Biden White House, then Trump's not your candidate. If you're lamenting the fact that Biden is in his 80s and is president of the United States, Trump is not your candidate. And if you're frustrated by the lack of integrity and the threats to our institutions, then Trump is not your candidate. Neither Trump nor Biden are the American people's #1 choice. So I've said that countless times, and I think we have other candidates in the GOP that we need to be looking at and should be.
Okay, to the horse race on the GOP side, Trump 56, DeSantis 22, Ramaswamy 5, Pence and Tim Scott at 4%. Here's former Governor Chris Christie on Trump and DeSantis.
I'm not comfortable with the way both Governor DeSantis and Donald Trump are moving our debate in this country. Their debate is trying to make this country smaller. They're trying to divide us further, and it's wrong.
Brad, does Governor Christie need to really take the fight to the candidates who are higher on the polling?
I think all Americans should appreciate Governor Christie's efforts here to holding everyone accountable. I think it shows a lot of courage in an environment where that's not often rewarded. But, you know, this is what happens when you have a party that is not really focusing on issues. Like the Republican Party at large is trying to create a lot of these problems where they don't exist, and they're focusing on wokeism and all this other kind of stuff when Americans are hurting. Like, where are the Republican plans for inflation? Where are the Republican plans to deal with the situation in Ukraine? Where are you seeing these efforts to address these issues on gun safety, on climate change? They're absent. And so in absence of real issues, you start getting into these character assaults and these attacks on minority voters, and I don't think it's going to be in the long-term best interest of the party.
Maura, full disclosure, we're both from Jersey. We understand Chris Christie. Your thoughts on what Brad said and also on Christie taking the fight to the guys higher in the polling?
Well, I think to what Brad said, yes, there are some candidates that have focused far too heavily on wokeism and different things like that, but there are plenty of candidates on the GOP side running for 2024 that have robust and, quite frankly, appealing policy plans and proposals ready to go. And someone like Chris Christie, who's going to speak truth to that and who's going to call people out who are focusing on issues that don't necessarily benefit the American people as a whole. So, yes, I think there are definitely candidates that we need to look at, and Christie is always going to speak his mind. And as a fellow New Jerseyan, I appreciate that.
All right. We will follow it. Brad Howard, Maura Gillespie, thank you so much for your time.